According to the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, hope is defined as, quote, to cherish a desire with anticipation, to want something to happen or be true. In other words, hope is wishful thinking. The flip side of hope is fear, which is defined by the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary as, quote, an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger, end quote. Fear, like hope, results from a personal prediction about the future that might or might not come to fruition. In focusing on this perceived future, hope and fear rob us of our ability to live in this moment. I'm no fan of hope, as I pointed out several times in this space. Similarly, I'm no fan of fear, and yet I recognize that most people are afraid of dying, a concept I find emotionally immature for people older than, say, 12 years or so. You are going to die. I am going to die. Indeed, all organisms die. Fearing death is fearing what one cannot control. As American writer Edward Abbey wrote, quote, the fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time, end quote. Edward Abbey's writing influenced me. I would like to believe that I have pursued a rich, full life, in part because of Abbey's influence. American actor Woody Allen comments on our short, wretched lives, quote, life is full of misery, loneliness, and suffering, and it's all over much too soon, end quote. Yes, life is challenging, and on the other hand, life is beautiful, and it ends too soon. One of the thoughts I expressed in my writing several years ago echoes Abbey and seems fitting here. Quote, our years on this most wondrous of planets, no matter how numerous they are to be celebrated. For better and worse, we get to live. Because our lives are relatively short, I recommend living where you feel most alive and simultaneously where you feel most useful. I recommend living fully. I recommend living with intention. I recommend living urgently with death in mind. I recommend the pursuit of excellence. I recommend the pursuit of love. In light of the short time remaining in your life, and my own, I recommend all of the above, louder than before, more fully than you can imagine, to the limits of this restrictive culture and beyond. For you, for me, for us, for here, for now. Live large, be you, and bolder than you've ever been. Live as though you're dying. The day draws near. I participated in the Grief Recovery Workshop in January of 2014. It was the first time I had seriously considered what it means to grieve. For that matter, it was the first time I had even thought about what it means to grieve. This is not surprising, considering that we don't even think about grief in this culture. The very word is taboo. In any event, the workshop gave me a much-needed definition of grief, wishing for a different past. We grieve what we said or didn't say to someone important in our lives. We grieve what we did or didn't do with someone important in our lives. Stuck in the present moment, we wish we could alter something we did or said. Upon learning this definition of grief, I immediately thought about my beloved dad and what he said to me during our last substantive conversation as I milked a goat on the homestead I created in rural New Mexico. Quote, I never thought one of my kids would be reduced to milking a goat, end quote. This conversation occurred about 4 years before I was exposed to the idea that grief is wishing for a different past. Those were 4 very difficult years for me. I immediately began to silently alter my relationship with my dad. I did this by completing a few short exercises as I contemplated his role in my life. This approach allowed me to move on emotionally. He didn't know what I'd done, nor did he ever need to know about those exercises. At stake was my emotional health, not his. A line from the Buddha comes to mind. Let go or be dragged. A line from American singer-songwriter Elvis Costello's 1976 song, The Angels Want to Wear My Red Shoes, also comes to mind. Quote, I used to be disgusted, now I try to be amused. For me at least, this approach contributes to my positive mental health.